days ago, I was really reflecting on how being a mom to a sassy 3-year-old has made me so much of a better person, how it has shifted my life and really taught me a lot of things about myself and even the world. It's amazing how just watching how a toddler lives her life really teaches you about how the world should be and what the ideal is, especially on issues like inclusion and belonging. And that's why I'm here today to share with you 3 things I've learned from my 3-year-old daughter about inclusion and belonging. If you're here for the first time, welcome, welcome, welcome. I am Ola, your DEI bestie, and I help organizations and inclusive leaders get the very best out of their employees and ensure that their organizations perform at the highest levels of innovation, productivity, and inclusion, especially by creating a strong sense of belonging in the workplace. So on to the topic of the day, 3 things I've learned from my 3-year-old about inclusion and belonging. The first thing I'd say I've learned from my 3-year-old about inclusion is not to overemphasize individual differences. And how do I mean? So I am Nigerian, my family is Nigerian, but we live in the Netherlands and we speak English at home. However, because Dutch is the primary language of instruction in the Netherlands, my daughter speaks Dutch and English. She's bilingual, simply put. And she speaks Dutch most of the time because that's the language of instruction in the daycare and later on when she starts school. So I'm often worried when I take my daughter with me, when I bring my daughter with me to spaces where children don't speak both Dutch and English, because I worry that, she might not get along. But I was very surprised, taking her to Germany and going on holiday in the UK, just seeing her play with other kids. And I often listen on the sidelines. I noticed that even with kids who don't speak Dutch, my daughter would speak Dutch very confidently to them. They would speak back in whatever language, either Spanish or English or German, whatever language they were proficient in, and they would communicate. My mind was blown to observe that, because I wondered how in their play, in the atmosphere of play, they didn't even consider that they all don't speak the same language or they all didn't speak the same language. And they just carried on with the business of the day, which was playing, right? And it reminded me so much of how we as adults, especially when you come to workplace settings, we're very quick to, point out areas of difference, areas of individual difference. The fact that we have different thought systems, different worldviews, different beliefs, different approaches to problem solving, and that often creates a dent. However, looking at my daughter and of course other toddlers, I could see that what really matters is patience, kindness, just being open to be together and work together. And that's all that really matters. We shouldn't quite overthink our individual differences as we work together. The second thing I would say I've learned from my daughter about inclusion and belonging is to be myself unapologetically. And I say this because I look at my daughter and I think she's the epitome of bringing your full and entire self with you everywhere you go. I observe how she relates to others in public, how she shows up. There was one time we went on holiday. I think we went to London on holiday that one time. And we were waiting in the hotel reception for our room to get ready. My daughter was feeling like she wanted to nap, but the chairs were not comfortable enough for her. And guess what she did? She got on the floor and lay down in the middle of the reception in public. And I was blown away, because we often show up in public spaces, social settings, and even in the workplace, we often show up with, the preconceived notion of how to behave. Right? Let's smile a little bit more. Let's not be too loud so that they don't think we're too much. And other kinds of inhibitions that come with social norms and expected behavior. However, what I've learned from my daughter is the importance to be yourself unapologetically, to bring my whole self wherever I am, and not to apologize for who I am. It's who I am, and everyone around me will adjust. The third thing I would say I've learned from my daughter about inclusion is the need to appreciate and celebrate others as much as possible. Acknowledging everyone's strengths, acknowledging people for who they are as much as possible. It warms my heart every time my daughter looks at me and says, "Thank you, mommy," with so much love in her eyes. It doesn't matter how little what I've done is, whether it's giving her snacks that she likes or serving her food or even dressing her up. She's always so thankful, and she thanks me so loudly that I know it. I know she's truly, truly thankful. It seems like my daughter always looks for things to appreciate about me as well. So even if I've worn a dress 50 times and she thinks it's pretty, every single time she says, "Mommy, that's so pretty." And I really appreciate that about her because it makes me always feel seen and acknowledged by her. And I always think back to how, as adults, we really should highlight people's strengths. There's always the tendency to point out what people are not doing right, their weaknesses, and all of that, the negative stuff, right? However, it's important to recognize people's strengths, truly appreciate people for whatever effort, however little they've put in to achieve a particular task. That always helps. That always goes a long way in making people feel like they're seen, they're respected, they're acknowledged, and they truly belong. Thank you for sticking around. I hope this has been very helpful for you. I look forward to seeing you in my next video.